Welcome. Hello and welcome. Tonight is the first night where I will be reading from the book Small as an Elephant. It is by Jennifer Richard Jacobson, and it is going to be it is a story about a little boy named Jack who has to make his way back to Boston, and the only friend he has, or the only companion he has, is a small toy elephant. So I want to read a little bit from this book just to make sure you guys are keeping along with your reading during this tumultuous time. I will read for just about 10-12 minutes and then we'll see where we are at the end. Vale? All right, chapter 1. If anyone wants to know what elephants are like, they are like people, only more so. It's a quote by Peter Cornell. Elephants can sense danger. They're able to detect an approaching tsunami or earthquake before it hits. Unfortunately, Jack did not have this talent. The day his life was turned completely upside down, he was caught unaware. He was in a little habitat tent at Seawall Campground on Mount Desert Island. The night had been cool, and Jack had been glad he'd insisted on taking his warmer sleeping bag when his mom tried to talk him into the other one, the one that was lighter and easier to scrunch up. But now it was morning and he was hot. His sweat-soaked hair stuck to his neck and forehead. Clothes dryer. That's what the tent smelled like. A trapped heat smell that filled his nostrils and told him the sun was high. It's gotta be lunchtime, he thought, kicking off his sleeping bag. Why hadn't she woken him up? He raced the tent zipper around its track and scrambled into fresher air. Dang! The rental car was gone. He stood there, rooted, as if his eyes just had to adjust to the light, had to let forms take shape, and the car would be there, right where she'd left it. But the car was really gone. So was the little tent his mother had pitched on the gravelly ground next to him. Jack tried to take a deep breath, but the air outside was now as heavy and suffocating as the air inside the tent had been. Had she moved sites? Maybe the ground beneath her sleeping bag was too rocky and she decided to find a better site. Which would make sense, he suddenly realized, because the camping gear they'd spread across the picnic table was no longer there either. All that was left on the site was Jack and his hubba. He fumbled for his phone to call her. No reception at the campground. At least not in this spot. Relax, he told himself. It probably had nothing to do with what had happened yesterday. A softer site, or one closer to the ocean, had probably opened up. She'd jump on it and was now sitting there, looking out at the Atlantic, waiting for him to show up. From what he'd been told, cars lined up every morning to get a spot at this campground. First come, first served. But Jack and his mother hadn't come at dawn. In fact, they hadn't arrived until late last night, and the ranger who explained the system said they were lucky. A family had just left because of a side kid. Jack figured his mom got back in line first thing this morning to see what else was available. This was their summer vacation, and they were planning on camping here in Arcadia National Park for 3 nights. She'd want it to be extra special. Question was, should he pack up his tent and take it with him? Or find her first? His stomach growled. He'd look now and pack later. Like most campgrounds, this one had lots of looping roads twisting through the woods. Jack began with Loop A and Loop B, figuring these would have sights on the water. But unless he was mistaken or had missed a road or two, none of the campsites had ocean views. So he scooped Loop C and Loop D, slowly enough to get a good look at the sights, fast enough to not look suspicious. Lots of places had a single tent, and since Jack's mother had borrowed both of the tents they were using, and because they had pitched them in the dark, Jack couldn't even say for sure what his mom's tent looked like. So he stuck to looking for the rental car. His mother had specifically asked for a Prius. Not because they were traveling all the way from Boston to Maine and gas was expensive, but because she believed in doing what she could to save the earth. I like this mom. So, what does this car run on? Jack had asked. Biodiesel? Nope. Gas and electricity. You can make energy from elephant poop, you know, Jack had said. The Dallas Zoo calls it poo power. P.U. Talk about biogas, his mother had said. He'd laughed. His mother was so quick with one-liners. Him? Well, he was an expert on all things elephant. Right now, he wished he had the memory of an elephant. Was the car white or silver? Walking in circles suddenly felt ridiculous. So, when he passed his own tent for the second time, it being on the only campsite with one tent and nothing else, he decided to stop looking. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out his spending money, and tossed it onto the picnic table. $14.63. He was going to find food. There were no concession stands in the campground, no restaurants, not even a convenience store. So Jack jogged out to the registration hut and asked the woman behind the counter, who was reading a fantasy by Robin McKinley, the same one his friend Nina had read earlier this summer, where the nearest market was. Tired of Dinty Monroe? She asked. Seawall camping supplies, right down the road. Jack knew all about Dinty Monroe stew, not from camping, but from the nights when his mom had to work late and he made his own dinner. Do you know if, he was gonna say, if a woman with short blonde hair and a light-colored Prius has come through, but feeling in the pit of his stomach made him change his mind mid-sentence. If that store you just mentioned has those neon red hot dogs? The woman laughed. Red snappers? Absolutely. Jack smiled. At least one of the things his mom had promised on the drive to Maine was going to happen. He was going to bite into a glowing red hot dog and hear a snap. The first thing Jack did once he'd left the park and was on Route 102A was pull out his phone again. There was a single bar. He had a tiny chance of reaching his mother. He punched in the number. Yes! It was ringing! But she didn't pick up. He wished they hadn't argued in the car last night. He wished he'd tried to be a little more understanding. He hung up and tried again, this time listening to her voicemail message. Becky Martell here, or not here, to be exact. Don't leave any old message. Wow me. He waited for the beep and then shouted, Where are you? Chapter 2. Separated elephants keep in touch with infrasonic calls, sounds too low-pitched for humans to hear. Since it's been about 10 minutes and I already uploaded a pretty long video this morning, I'm going to stop here. We can continue reading this tomorrow. I hope you guys tune in for Chapter 2 of Small as an Elephant by Jennifer Richard Jacobson. Good night.